One of the things I love about gardening and landscaping is how diverse it is. And with that diversity, you can unleash your creativity.
Let's take it to a place where we
Yep, I'm making a living artwork out of succulents, a bit of plywood and some recycled timber. So what we've got is 2 sheets of marine ply, store-bought, not cut, and some H3 treated pine that's been cut down to size. Now, if you're not real good with a circular saw, you can get them to cut each of these lengths for you, but you will need a jigsaw to cut out the pattern in the middle. The frame's just butt joint. It doesn't get much simpler than that. With any luck, that should match my plywood. The kid down at Bunnings knows what he's doing. This is actually the backboard, and I can put it on now, but the front I need to keep loose because I still need to work with it in my pattern. So this is going to be the top. I'm not screwing it down because I need to cut something out with a jigsaw, but I'm using the frame to keep it up off the table. Don't want to go past the line because I'll expose the frame, but now I'm just going to draw a freehand tree. Okay, I'm happy with my tree shape, so I'm just drilling some pilot holes and then I'm cutting it out using a jigsaw. Okay, so at the moment it looks like a cloud, but if I put a trunk on it, it'll look like a tree. Council Throwout is a great place to shop. I found this beautiful piece of antique Oregon. Now what I'm going to do is create a trunk out of it and it'll create a bit of 3D, a bit of depth, going from the flat plain ply to the succulents and then the trunk. Once the cutouts are done, give them a sand and smooth off the edges. I'm going to plant into sphagnum moss and the price adds up if you're buying a lot of it. So I've got an internal frame which just minimises how much I have to use. So all these internals that come in contact with the peat moss, I'm going to give them a coat of paint. It'll just work like a sealer and give you a little bit more protection. Even though I've sealed it to protect the timber, it's still important for excess water to get away, so I'm putting in 3 large drainage holes. So what we've actually made is a shallow pot, and we're going to make it even tougher by hanging it on the wall. If I use normal potting mix, gravity would come into play. Next time you water it, it'd all go south. But if I use sphagnum moss, it's light and it holds heaps of moisture. One bag like this will cost you about 30 bucks. That's a negative. But fill it with water, it expands to about 3 times the size, and that's the positive. 1 bag in here will be plenty. Piece of chicken wire, just nailed off with a staple gun. We'll keep the sphagnum moss in place until the root system of our plants takes over. I'll give it the strength that keeps it all together. Okay, now I'm just attaching the front with the tree cutout using screws. Trunk goes in and you can see that it looks like a tree. But to dress up the box, because I've got these exposed screw holes, is I'm going to bring that in a little bit and frame it in some old decking that I also found and give it a little bit more depth by raising the edge. Now you can go down to Bunnings and buy beautiful little succulents like this. They look like cupcakes for $3 to $4 each. The next size up is about the $7 to $8 mark, but they'll make a massive impact. But if you don't like the idea of spending money, succulents grow dead easy from cuttings. You don't have to worry about roots, you don't have to worry about propagating them. Stick them in and they will grow. Now, if you've got friends and families or even a stranger, knock on the door and ask if you can take a couple. Because if I know one thing, I know plant people are good sharers. Don't be too scared or intimidated by bashing up the roots on these. All you need to leave is kind of like the little tube that they've come out of. Then make your hole with your planting stick. And then around the chicken wire, I push the peat moss in so that the plant's stable where it is. Remember, eventually I want to tip this up on a wall. How cute's that? Doesn't it look $1 million? And you're looking at it upside down. So imagine what it looks like when you turn it around. Now this one's pretty elaborate. I've gone to the effort with the jigsaw to cut out the tree and the trunk and framed it up with the hardwood, but you could really dumb it down and keep it quite simple. A long skinny rectangle will look fantastic on your outdoor table setting, and a square, either on the wall or used as a pot, looks $1 million as well. And don't forget, they'll work indoors, just watering with a mister, but they look absolutely stunning and at home outside in the garden. Life in the big city comes with compromise. You might have to live in a smaller space because everyone wants to be there. And that means the backyard or your courtyard gets shrunk down as well. But just because it's a little space doesn't mean you can't be big with your ambitions. It just means you've got to fit it into a smaller space, like this one. But even if you're not building a garden from scratch, there's a heap of ideas here that you could use at your place this weekend. Wow, nice gate and beautiful garden. Wow, how cool is this aloe? When you're working with a smallish courtyard, and this is 7 metres by 5 metres, you want to make sure you've got plenty of usable space. But one of the tricks to make it more inviting is to add bigger garden beds than what you think. And that's exactly what they've done here. When it comes to materials, the smaller the courtyard, the better, because your money goes further and you can buy better materials. The sandstone on this wall is stunning and the travertine on the floor is fantastic. What I like about these two materials is they look great when they first go down, but then they age and they tell a story as they get older. Rather than dating, they look like they've been here forever. The gate that I walked in through, when it's closed, looks like a permanent fence rather than an entryway. It means one less thing to look at, and the old timber, it gives this garden a sense of history. In a small space, you might think you want the biggest dance floor possible, having it all on the one plane, but actually having level changes like these raised garden beds and the stone wall behind me, which were all purely created for aesthetics, give you a couple of advantages. You've got height changes and level changes, so you've got points of interest. Plus, you can work on your drainage, which means you can bring in some premium soil and have a better garden. Now, if you're heading off to buy plants this weekend, the thought behind the plant selection in this garden is something that you should keep in mind. So what do you plant in a small courtyard? Well, it really depends on your conditions. Here you've got 3 stories of units plus the shade of the next door neighbour's tree. So your window for sunlight is about this big, and when you get it, it's in the middle of the day, so it's going to be really harsh. So trying to have a flowering garden is near impossible. But if you still want colour, you can achieve it, and well, using ornamental plants that have the colour in their leaves. Like these gingers are variegated, so you've got that splash of yellow. You've got these xanadus, which have got this amazing shape to the leaf, so a point of interest. You've got this calatheas. You can see the pattern on the top, plus the beautiful purple on the underside, which you're going to see when you're sitting down. Philodendrons, just beautiful, lush, big leaves and those red, purpley stems. And probably the most popular indoor plant in Australia at the moment is the fiddle leaf fig. And there's one in the corner here. They're quite expensive to buy, but it's a real asset, and that one's doing extremely well. Keep the water up to this garden, and it will be such a beautiful, lush space, and look even better than this as it gets older. So if you're thinking about living in a unit, maybe think about the ground floor, because I look at this as a massive asset.